Welcome into the DML Network. It's your boy Xpert, and I got another episode of Xpert's Corner. And I got a very special guest on the show today. I've been waiting for this interview for a while. It's none other than Shutdown Safety himself, Mr. Ryan Moody. What's going on, Ryan?
Not much, but you've already set an example that I cannot meet if you've been waiting a while.
Yeah, you know, I've been reaching out to the homie Ryan to get on the show. You know, he's very, very busy. Works a regular job. I know a lot of guys think just your YouTube channel is your full income, but works a regular job plus the YouTube stuff. So very busy guy, but appreciate you taking time out of your day to jump on Xpert's Corner. For the guys that maybe, of course, you got to be living under a rock if you're in the Madden community, don't know who Ryan Moody is. But just tell them where they can find you at, whether on Twitter or on your YouTube channel, and then we'll jump into the show.
Sure. So my Twitter, like you said, is Shutdown Safety altogether. My YouTube channel is just youtube.com/Ryan Moody 21. So RyanMoody, and then numeric 21.
All right. Make sure y'all check him out on all the social media sites. Check him out on YouTube. Subscribe to his channel. Become a follower. Always has good insight. He's just going to give you the other side of the coin. So you got to tune in and understand what you're going to get with Ryan. But let's get into the show. First topic. Just a couple things that you really do love. How did you get into the NASCAR game? I was watching the show the other day you were doing, and you talked about, you know, you've done everything from drive the car, test them out, change the tires, you know, work in the shop. How did you get involved with that?
When I left high school, I actually went directly out into another career because the athletic thing just wasn't going to work out for me out of high school. And I ended up going to college, and I had a friend of mine that basically just said one day, hey, listen, you know, we need somebody that can help. You know, do you feel like you could do it? And, of course, I'd been a race fan my whole life. And from that point, that kind of just snowballed into just doing it for a real long time. I went from, you know, working at a smaller team in ARCA to working in larger cup teams and nationwide teams and truck teams, and then kind of came full circle and went back down to ARCA to end everything out. And I would have kept doing it, but it's interesting what had happened was I'd always been a big MMA fan as well, and I'd reached out to a couple people to try to start to do some things there. One of them happened to be Anthony Smith, and me and Anthony, real similar mindset, real similar people, and I just basically got to the point where I was like, you know, I can't do both of these, so I need to commit 100% one way or the other. And I basically, as soon as Anthony got the call back to the UFC, I made up my mind that I was going to, you know, devote, you know, dealing with him and going out to his fights. And at that point, I was also getting a little older myself, and basically just, you know, came to the conclusion that it was time to just let that part go and move forward. Unfortunately, you know, like you said, the YouTube income isn't ever going to be enough to sustain me. And although I made a pretty good amount more racing, there's no health care, there's no retirement, there's no medical benefits. So at some point you have to look at things realistically. In addition to that, my mother was starting to get sick. So, you know, it was kind of like, take advantage of what I could take advantage of, live the dream for as long as I could live the dream for as long as I could live it. And then, it was time to just open a new chapter, I suppose. So yeah. Things worked out. Things worked out in weird ways.
Yeah, and you brought me to my next question, MMA. So you're working with Anthony. How has that been with that transition from NASCAR into the MMA? And he's actually been very successful here lately. And so tell me how that's been when you got into the MMA scene.
I mean, two totally different worlds. I mean, in racing, you know, we came from a world where everybody was credentialed. You know, everything was sectioned off. You had ultimate control over who could go where, do what, and why. In MMA, it's completely different. You know, when I go in and I'm in his camp, I don't have any access card. I can walk where I want to go, where I want to go. The media, the images, the audio, everything that I take there can be used right away by me. In racing, that was totally different. I mean, even the videos that we would take of us doing stops to learn from, to practice from. None of that was ever anything that I could use without actually, crediting NASCAR or having them use it. So I guess in a way it was absolutely strange to see such a stark contrast on both things. I never would have expected that from the outside looking in, that they would be so different. I guess that was probably the only true professional sports environment that I knew. And listen, for what it's worth, I had some horrible fights with NASCAR media and the things that that they just want to restrict and hold against you. It probably pushed me out of it more than anything else, was just trying to get around them and deal with them. Ultimately it's their sandbox, and you can either play by their rules or not play. So to come to another sport that, in my opinion, is just as large, if not larger, and basically see the total opposite side of, do whatever you have to do, help your guys, work with your guys, promote your guys. We don't care as long as you follow these general guidelines. It was just strange to see those two things kind of complete parallels. And obviously, I think, to be the most respectful way to both of them, I think if you look at the fan support, if you look at the numbers, there's a reason why UFC and MMA are growing and growing. And, NASCAR, in my opinion, has been a slow death for a very long time. There was a period where I was in charge of marketing people and social media accounts, and I saw firsthand that the support, the desire, the offers are not there.
Yeah, and that's crazy to think that NASCAR wouldn't want to open that up to brand that sport even more than it is.
It's funny. As a kid, I went to Dover. That was kind of one of the highlights of, I guess, my life. I went to Dover as a kid, and with my dad, and to get an opportunity years later to go there and work there is just kind of one of those weird things. But the ironic part was when we would go there, we sat like exit of turn 2 or real high entering turn 3. By the time I got to a point in my career where I could go there and pit a car or work with a team, those seats were torn down and gone, because the support for the support for the sport was just no longer viable. So it's strange, it's kind of one of those things where you see today they kind of hype that, you can go back to your hometown track, and that's a way to signify that you made it in life. But by the time I got back there, the places that were special to me were gone.
Yeah, that's crazy, and that's awesome that the MMA opened its doors and allowed you to be a part of that, especially with the fighter that you just have those same passions with. And does he have a fight coming up soon? I know he just had one long ago.
Yeah, he just fought Rashad Evans in Chicago. Yeah. He wanted a first round knockout.
Yeah, he put it on Rashad. It was pretty bad.
It was everything it should have been.
Yeah, I actually heard that there's talk of Rashad maybe hanging it up because of that fight.
Listen, Rashad's an absolute killer. I know a lot of people look at what Anthony did and, say, well, that should have happened or that's the way it's supposed to work. But, what I've learned in the time that I've been involved in MMA, there is no that's how it's supposed to work. There is no that's how it's supposed to go. Every fighter at the UFC level is just as dangerous, is just as powerful, is just as capable as any other fighter. There is no gimme fights in that place, and anybody can lose any given night. Anybody can get clipped at any given time. So, I think a lot of people overlooked Rashad. A lot of people looked at Anthony as somebody that was going to come in capable of doing what he did. But just because he's capable of doing it doesn't always mean that that's exactly how it's going to go to plan. Rashad can very well retire, and that's great. He's had an amazing career. Rashad Evans is a real big part of the reason I got involved and followed MMA. His fights with Chael Sonnen, his fights with Rampage Jackson. I mean, those were really special moments that capture a lot of people. And he does an incredible job at commentating too. So, I've never not cheered for Rashad except for last weekend. So, if he wants to fight again, I'll gladly cheer for him. And I'll tell you right now, if anybody thinks that that's all Rashad Evans has left, then they don't know Rashad Evans too well, and I probably doubt they would be willing to get into a cage with him, because I promise you, he's still he's still a former champion. He's still an amazing fighter. And honestly, like I said, I think that night he just, ran into somebody whose time is coming at a time where his time is passing. But you can go back and look at the Sam Alvey fight. You look at the, I can't think of the other Dan. I can't think of his last name now. Dan Kelly. I mean, you look at those Dan Kelly fights. I mean, those were split decision losses. Split decisions, naturally, as the name implies, can go either way. Right. It's not like he was coming in there. I know they want to put it up as he was coming on a losing streak. He was coming on split decision losses. He was about as dangerous as he ever could be. He knew where he is in the sport, and like I said, I would never take anything away from him. He's a true champion. He's not quite a pioneer of the sport because he's not that old, but right. Like I said, Rashad there's nothing Rashad would do to tarnish my opinion of the fighter that he is. And in a way, it's upsetting to see people diminish him so much just because he's went through a rough spot in his career. I don't see a lot of people, pining for other fighters to retire as soon as they've gotten, a loss here or there. I mean, if that was the case, look at Machida. Machida would have been done a long time ago. So, I guess it's hindsight 2020. But at the end of the day, I'm super proud of Anthony. I mean, you dream of stuff like that happening. It's just, I'm not the one in there that's willing it to happen. He is, and he had an incredible performance that night. So it's about all you can ask for.
Yeah, he definitely did. He definitely showed out. And looking forward to see where his career can go. Maybe we'll see a belt around his waist in the UFC.
That's the plan.
Would be an amazing thing to do. I know you'd be super excited for him.
Yeah, I would be too.
You can tell Ryan very, very passionate about MMA. Guys, he's not just a Madden guy. He's not just, the things that y'all see. He's actually passionate about the things he's involved with, and definitely Anthony Smith, one of those things you're passionate about. But another thing that I know that you're involved with is Access Football. So tell me how you got involved with that part, with a new game that's coming out, new football game coming out that we should see later this year on consoles. How'd you get involved with that with JD and them?
Well, I mean, I guess for better or worse, I've always been very open to any company that wants to come to me. I mean, I want every game to be the best it is. I don't care who makes it. EA Sports, Canuck Play, Access, does not matter. Any developer that wants to come and spend time with me and be welcomed in our community, it's my actual duty, in a way, to allow them that time and that place. So it's kind of always been those situations where, they search around. Eventually they'll find my channel. They'll come to me. And like I said, I'm very open. I'm very gracious. There's a lot of things and opportunities I have because of the way the community supports my channel. And it would be against everything that the community would want if I were to shun those developers and say, I'm not going to work with you. I'm not going to help you. And I know that we're talking about Access, but just a quick example, Maximum Football, which is coming out on consoles as well by Canuck Play, they actually had a concept that they had ran past me. And it was essentially a franchise that would be done through a desktop module. So you play the seasons out on your PC, your PS4, your Xbox One, and then you would import that information over to your desktop and use an off-season football manager to progress through. If you had came to me and said, Ryan, is this a good idea? I would probably, I'll tell you, I would have said that's an amazing idea. There's no way that no one would not want to do that. I can't believe this has never been done before. Yet when I put up a video about it and the community had an opportunity to respond, they were completely against it. Not completely against it, but a high percentage of them were against it and said, I don't want to do this. And I think that in a nutshell surmises the way we have to be. We cannot simply allow 3, 4, 5, 6 people get appointed a community leader and then think that they have the credibility to speak on behalf of everyone. We have to have these open lines of communication. We have to have these channels between me and the developer and them. Because if I'm not sending your feedback, I'm not doing you any service. And ultimately, that's kind of what we're here to do, is serve the community. If you're going to give us that platform, and that's the only reason we have it, is because you guys support, or, they support my channel. If, I hate to put it so bluntly, but, if somebody went to a channel and it's got, 10 subscribers and 15 views, that company is most likely not going to go to that individual and say, we want to dedicate some time with you. We want to use your channel as an outlet to show our game and get community feedback. They're not going to do that. Instead, they're going to go to a smaller channel, a medium channel, a larger channel, and I hate to use the word promote. A lot of people use the word promote, where they're going to promote your game. I'm not here to promote your game. I'm not here to sell your game. I don't benefit from your game being sold. What I benefit from is a better football game, and the only way we get a better football game is to have an open discussion with our community, and that's really the whole core and principle of what I started doing. You know, I watched a guy, Gideon Prime. A lot of people remember him. I watched him do breakdowns, and, you know, I said to myself, you know, I could do this. You know, I could probably take these 10 or 15-minute videos and maybe dwindle them down to maybe 3 or 4-minute videos. And it kind of worked from there. You know, I kind of picked that up and ran with that. And God, man, I've seen so many people come and go in our community. But, you know, the whole tone, anywhere that I've went, anywhere that I've worked as far as gaming companies has been, is trying to get the game I want to play.
Right. And do you think sometimes, and we'll talk more about this in the EA segment, but do you think sometimes we don't have that in the community? We don't have guys that are just out to make the best game possible?
I mean, I don't want to speak for anybody else. I'll tell you what I don't fully understand, and even when people explain it to me, you know, when somebody goes, well, you know, I don't need to make content. I don't need to talk with the community because I have a direct line to the developer. Well, that's okay. You know, and listen, I've got a direct line to a lot of developers. It doesn't mean that I'm going to sell the community short or sell myself short by not still having these discussions. Like I said, I don't put my word at the end of this is what everyone must want because this is what I want. And I think a lot of it comes down to accountability. You know, I've made some mistakes. I made a mistake a week ago. You know, but you have to take ownership of those mistakes. And for me to sit here and say, well, this is what I want in a game and this is what I want fixed, when it's not ultimately done, at some point we have to determine where does that blame lie. Does it lie with the developer for not fixing it, or does it lie with the creator for not coming back and giving them proper examples? If I can't know for sure what you were saying to help make the game better, then I don't know that you're accurately depicting my voice. And I think, you know, when you look at Madden as a whole, I really feel like that's where we've, you know, kind of digressed to. You know, that's my concern. For the people that aren't making content 6, 7, 8 months after release, how do I know that you're going back to the developer with the concerns I have when these concerns have been in the game 4, 5, 6, 7 years? Something doesn't add up there. You're either not giving them the right feedback, you're either not playing the game to see the issues that we're seeing, or they can't fix it. And I can tell you from interacting with most developers myself, if it's something as, and I hate to say something as simple as they can't fix it, but they know right away. They know what they can do, they know what they can't do, and if they can't do it, they're not going to sell it to you because they know they can't deliver it. And that's the worst thing you can do for a game is sit there and try to deliver a product or sell a product that you know you can't deliver.
Okay, so when you look at Maxim and you look at Access, do you feel like those developed teams, because they're a little bit smaller, that maybe that they're going to listen to the community a little bit more because they're trying to put out the best game? I know when I talked to JD, you know, JD was very honest with us about, hey, you know, this is not the answer to the EA question. We're not trying to go to that level right now. We're just trying to put the best game we can put out right now and then build on that. Do you think because they're smaller companies that we're going to see a little bit more improvement in a faster pace than we would see at EA?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say improvement. I would say they're quicker to respond. So I'll give you a real quick example. A real life. There were a number of people in the community that were pining for the ability to put actual players' faces in the game so that they could go create whatever league they wanted to replicate, take images from, you know, the NFL or college and actually put their player faces in the game and have them replicated through the stat lines of that player. You know, not incredibly hard to do, I would imagine. But if you were someone at EA and you have a group of, let's say, 50 people that are asking you to do something, you may never get that message. And even if you did, in a business sense, how can you go back and say, listen, we need to put everything else on the back burner because we've got 50 people here that want this feature to be added. And I know that we've got other features that we're working on, but these 50 people deserve to have this feature implemented. So when you're talking about sales in the millions, right? When you're talking about profits in probably the billions more likely, that message takes a lot longer to deliver and takes a lot more people to set the expectation. If you look at a smaller game like Axis, like we mentioned, they look at those 50 people, 20 people, 30 people, and they say, okay, this is a significant amount of profit for us if we can sell 50 more copies of this game, if we can get 50 more people to play this game. This is worth our time to try to sit back and code. The other benefit you have with either of these games is that there is no designer. There's no gameplay designer where you basically have somebody sit there, think about what needs to be in the game, construe it to a coder, and then have that person write the code. You know, you have actual coders that are taking the community's input and putting it back into the game. I mean, to bring Access back, you know, Danny actually did an hour-and-a-half segment on my channel where he coded a bug out of the game. You know, and that's not to say that there's people at EA that cannot do that. We all know that they are. EA is not in a position both where their game is as far as advancement or as far as in an industry that's going to allow them to sit there and program out a flaw publicly. I mean, there may not even be people that want to see that. So that to me is the difference. You know, you've got a much simpler window. You've got much cleaner programming. I mean, let's be fair. Some of the programming in Madden has probably been touched by 30, 40 people.
Right.
So when you know, if you look at what Danny did, I think it's great. You know, Danny actually made a mistake on my channel trying to code that. This is code that this guy all wrote. Right. So if he can make a mistake in his own code, well, then how can you expect somebody to go into another person's code, or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people's code, and not make a mistake, and not read it right, or not affect something other than they think they're going to affect? I mean, it's nearly impossible. It's not a knock on EA. It's not a knock on their team. It's just the nature of coding.
Right.
So I think the reaction and the response can be a lot more. And obviously the other side of that is, yeah, for right now these games are going to look rough. They're going to play simplistic. They're not going to have all the bells and whistles that we expect. But they're also not sold at that price point either.
Right. So what do you say to that gamer? And we've seen a lot of it, Ryan, on social media that have just really already put Maxim football, already put Access football, and said, listen, I'm not going to support that. It's not going to compare to what we see in Madden with the EA development team. What do you say to that guy that's already said, you know what, I'm not going to support this group? How can you change that person's mind and say, guys, you can't expect Madden football from Access. You can't expect that from Maxim football. You can't compare apples to oranges. You talked about price point. Yeah, it's not going to be at that $60 price point. What can you say to that guy that's already really not going to give these developers a chance?
Congratulations. I mean, honestly, I'm not here to change somebody's opinion one way or another. You know, if they've made up their mind where they feel like a game isn't for them, then in a way I'm glad that they've made that decision. If they truly have, if they sat down, they've looked at the games constructively, and they've literally came to the conclusion, this game has nothing to offer me, that's okay. They're not going to be for everybody. They're not for everybody right now. But at the same time, you know, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, don't allow where the game is now to impact how you actually project it going forward. Or worse yet, don't take your opinion of what the game is and having not played it, and then push that opinion on other people. Because like I said, I'm not willing to do that myself. You know, these games all have positive aspects to them. None of them are perfect, even to go back to Madden. And that's the great thing about having multiple games in the community. Every one of them has something they can learn from the next. Maximum Football has its play editor. Every game now has that standard. Madden Access, they need a gameplay editor, they need a play editor. You know, if you look at Access, what their franchise is going to bring. You know, you look at when you're talking about Maximum Football building a franchise. They have a standard of what the community expects, not just from a AAA title like Madden in their franchise, but from Access and obviously an independent franchise.
Right.
And then likewise, anything, literally. There is nothing that Access and Maximum do that EA should not be able to outdo, or at least have. And I think that's the most insane thing. The fact that there already is. I mean, the customization that Access brings is at a very high level.
Yeah.
They, obviously, and again, I'm not going to sit here and entertain that, well, EA is watching Access's every move and mirroring them. That's probably an unrealistic thought process. But I do find it very ironic that Access came in with 50 years of custom draft classes, which is something franchise for EA we've asked for years and years and years. And the year after it's implemented, it shows up in Madden the following year. So for the last 5 years, you've had a whole community. I don't know one person in the franchise world that has not asked for custom draft classes. And we've not had it. Access Football does it, sets that standard of, listen, if you had a franchise mode, you need custom draft classes. Right. And then now EA brings it. And for that matter, when Maximum Football begins to work on theirs, well, now they know EA and Access have custom draft classes. You have to be on that level, or, you're going to have some pushback. You're going to risk the possibility of maybe somebody, like you said, not taking your game seriously, not purchasing your game, because here you are, not living up to the expectation. That's the greatest part about it, is all three of them. And if somebody is going to sit there and say, well, one of these games isn't for me, well, then in a way, you're basically preventing all of them from getting better.
Right. Yeah, and that's my last question. Do you feel like these games can push each other to be better and better? You talked about having multiple games in the community and how important that is. Do you feel, and you've already, said Access put custom draft classes in, all of a sudden Madden has custom draft classes. Do you feel that that's going to be kind of the standard now, that these three games are going to push each other to get better and better and better?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think they have to. And if they don't, then the community does. That's our responsibility. If you were going to, essentially we're to a point now, to be fair, if you're going to sit down Madden, right, if you're going to sit down a AAA title for an independent game, you're only doing that because it's giving you a certain experience, whether it's an in-depth franchise, whether it's a level of customization, whether it's the ability to go out and create your own plays and playbooks. Whatever you set down that AAA title for, it's something that, as a community, needs to be brought up. Because I think at one point you have to look fundamentally. If Madden was the game that we all wanted, and I know it's never going to be, but if it provided the experience that 80% of the sim football community wanted, there would be no need for Access. There would be no market for Maximum Football. People would be playing Madden, enjoying Madden, and that would be the end of it. We wouldn't be having these discussions. My channel would be talking about all the realistic things this game does, and look at how great this game is, instead of look at all these areas that can improve. So are they ever going to get on par with it? I mean, from a gaming company standpoint, it's hard to say. An independent game should not rival a professional AAA title with a series license attached to it. Shouldn't be.
Right.
But are there things that they can actually take out of what context do people pick this game up for and move forward? Yes. But again, I think like we talked about earlier, that all comes back to us. That all comes back to the community. That's our responsibility. As a collective group, whether we're speaking for ourselves or whether we're going to allow people to speak for us. If there's something that another game is doing and the game that you're playing isn't doing it, you can't expect it to get better if you're not going to sit there and share your opinion as to why. If you're going to wait for someone else, whether it's me or not, to try to be your voice, it's never going to happen. I'm never going to say something the exact same way someone else would. I'm never going to have the same priorities as someone else. It's great that they come to my channel, and it's amazing how much they support me, but at the same time, I can't expect to be a person that I'm not. And I think that's one thing our community's really struggled for, is enough of a support outside of 10, 15, 20 channels, and also a community that truly, listen, at the end of the day, we're against each other a lot more than we are for each other. And me myself included. I mean, a lot of us are guilty of that. But at the same time, like you said in the beginning, this is something I get emotional about. This is something that I'm passionate about. This is something I put a lot of my time and my life into.
Yeah.
And when I'm not seeing the results, I'm going to speak out about that, as anyone should, truthfully. There is no right or wrong here. But at the end of the day, it seems like the past few years we've really digressed. I don't mind a slow progress. I don't mind a game slowly getting better. But I do mind when I look at it and I say, listen, we're not going anywhere.
Right.
And when I look at Madden 19 gameplay, unless something drastically different comes along, I'm not seeing that giant marked improvement. I watched maybe one drive the other day, and I mentioned in a video, if you really knew what you were doing, you would be able to hide these things, right? If you knew the way the safeties constantly ruin coverage, you would know not to run routes into those zones. Just wouldn't show it, right? If you wanted to be biased. If you knew that the zone plays were broken, wouldn't you always try to line up in man?
Right.
If you knew that the draw plays had massive issues blocking, wouldn't you try not to run the draw?
Absolutely.
If you knew the halfback screen was a crapshoot, wouldn't you say, you know what, I'm not even going to run it? So that's what I don't get. When people talk about, oh, you've got a clear bias against these other channels or these other games, listen, if I really wanted to be that guy, people have always accused me of this, well, you cherry pick plays. Well, you know what? If you think that I have enough time in my day to cherry pick plays, then you need to be the one out here making videos along with me. Because if you've got a totally different experience from any of these games than I do, like we mentioned earlier, that's up to you. That's your responsibility as a consumer to say, you know what, I'm going to speak up about this. This guy says this game is good, and I think this game is trash. Or this guy says this game isn't as good as I think it is, and I'm going to prove him wrong. As I said for years, it might be out of business. If Madden was as good as so many people claim that it is, there would be no reason people come to my channel. None. There would be people that devote channels to specifically how great it is. And most of the popular Madden channels I see are based around MUT, are based around money plays, and honestly are based around things that kind of make me laugh. I mean, there's people that make a living on YouTube of seeing how many times they can run a play to get a strange animation to occur. Things that shouldn't happen. Yet, these are things that we deal with. I mean, that's an incredible world.
Right. All right, and that brings me to the last segment. You
already said the last segment, but you'll get a bonus one.
You've got the persona of Ryan Moody versus EA, and really that it's kind of been crazy these past couple of days, even this past week. The amount of attacking I've seen online, Ryan Moody versus EA. When did that start? When did that start where you felt like, and it's not just your channel, there's a lot of guys that are critical of Madden to the point where you want to make it a better game, but you're critical of it. At what point did you start to see that flip in Madden where you felt like you had to kind of go harder at the company than these other guys, these other channels that you see, the game changers that we see for Madden? Where did you feel like, okay, man, I got to have a bigger voice now?
I don't know that I ever hit that moment. I mean, to me, what I can tell you is from the day I started till today, I've always tried to do the same thing and approach it the same way. I think there is a number of people that are frustrated with where the game is, and I think there's a number of people that want the game to be better than it absolutely is. It's funny you mentioned that, the hate, like there are people that legitimately hate me over my stance on a video game, it's crazy to me. It's crazy to think that I could get people that upset. But I put up some screenshots of one of the Madden, a typical Madden supporter, if you will. And I mean, this guy literally went through, Madden 25 being one of the best games. Madden 15 quoted as near perfection. Madden 16 as the new standard. Madden 17 as top 3 sports game of all time. Well, if that's going to be your prerogative, then where are you getting this from? Where are you ranking these games? And how are you supposed to view me as anything other than somebody that hates this company? I don't hate EA. I don't like what EA has done to the football game market. But I want EA to make the best football game possible. I've been to EA. I've had that pleasure. I've had that opportunity. I spent a week there. And I can tell you that a lot of the things that I brought up sitting there for a week, losing money from my normal job, aren't fixed today. So, like we talked about in the beginning, to bring this kind of full circle, where are those conversations going? You know, you're going to get mad at me because I'm the one that's just showing the game. If I'm wrong, show me. Show me where the game is right. Show me what I'm missing. I don't want the experience with Madden that I have. I don't want this dice roll, DDA-filled game. You know, I want a game that's going to respect what's going to happen every single time. And the great thing about that is, as we've seen in football for years and years and years, it's just almost to take it back to MMA. It's kind of that any given Sunday, any given play. You know, guys get beat that shouldn't get beat. Guys get beat by guys that shouldn't beat them. You can't sit there and put it in a collective rating and say every single time these two guys line up, this guy's going to win.
Right.
But you have to make the time the guy that is supposed to win loses happen for a reason. Slip, stumble, fall, I don't care. But don't just have somebody run the other direction. Don't just have somebody mindlessly stop. You know, I want to play a game. I don't want to be played by a game. And I think with Madden, a lot of the negativity comes from people that just haven't understood that yet. They honestly feel insulted when someone says something negative about the game because they feel it's a direct representation of them as a person. You know, people that are good in Madden must be high football IQ, must be really good at football. No, it's not that way, and it hasn't been that way. It should be that way. But more often than not, it's who can exploit the game, who can control which animations get played out. You know, and that's why when you look at these Madden tournament guys, not to take anything away from them, but they just play on a different level than anyone else.
Right.
You know, they're running the quarterback sneak so many times that they have to go in and modify it. I mean, that tells you a lot in and of itself. They ran the quarterback sneak and the fullback dive so many times that EA had to take time out of making the game better in other areas to program how those plays operated because they were getting exploited. And the only reason they knew that is because they were watching people do it at these tournaments and challenges. I don't see where that gets the game better.
Right. Do you feel like people aren't giving you the fair, the respect of hearing you out completely? That once Ryan puts something out, once they see Shutdown Safety on Twitter, it's automatic. He just hates EA, so we can't listen to anything that he says. Do you feel like that's in the community, there's some of that response towards you?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And for that same matter, there's just as many people that think, that I own a stake in Access, I own a stake in Maximum. And like I said, they're free to that opinion. I just wish they would back that up with something factual. I mean, let the game speak for itself. Go pick out 6 plays. And I've told people to do this from the beginning. Anybody's welcome to do this. Download my video, lay your own commentary over it, explain where I'm wrong. But the argument never gets to that point. That moment never happens. And I guess that's where, they're free to think that. But I think a lot of them thinking that isn't so much about me or about negativity. It's about how positive they want to be with Madden. And naturally, if you have one person that's overly positive about something, and even if you have somebody that is negative, or just looks at it from a different perspective, you're going to have that clash. The problem is in our community, more often than not, that clash has to seemingly end up with someone being right and someone being wrong. You can't have discussions to get the game better anymore. You're either a Madden defender or you're a Madden hater. The gray area has disappeared the past few years. And like I said, I think the gray area has disappeared because people are getting more frustrated overall. Even the supporters. You can't tell me that there's certain things that haven't changed. You can work around them. You can create your own rules to deal with them. But the game overall is not improving at the pace I think any of us expect. And if you're happy with the level that it's going, forward with, then by all means, we're going to be here for a long time. This is Madden's 30th anniversary. I mean, 30 years is a long time to make a game. Madden should be setting the standard other games follow. And I don't know one thing, aside from long shot, I don't know one thing that Madden does where another gaming company has to come over and say, you know what, we need to get that. We need to put this in our game because Madden has it. It's just a lot of copying. And like I said, I think that's where I think a lot of the hate comes from frustration. And listen, my channel was born from frustration in a way. So I don't deny it. But like I said, ultimately, I hope that the people that feel that way will begin, maybe this is the year, we'll begin to talk about all these games. If you buy Access and you buy Maximum and you're not happy with them, fantastic. You load up a couple plays, show them what's wrong with the game, and you know what? Give them time to fix it. And if they don't fix it, then hey, keep doing it. But I will tell you, I think, like we mentioned before, the ease of getting things fixed or the transparency with developers will be much greater at the independent level just by nature of game design and game program. And I think if people were more open-minded, not just about what Madden doesn't do right, but ultimately what the other games are trying to do. I mean, at the end of the day, if something makes an EA game better, whether it's Madden or not, if you love the game, shouldn't that be great? And if you hate the game, shouldn't that be great too? I mean, don't we really all want a better game no matter how we're trying to accommodate it? Just because I'm just because I'm not outwardly, best friends with these people doesn't mean that I don't want them to have the best game possible. I really do wish I could go back to the way things used to be with 2K5. Not to say that game was perfect, but we could do breakdowns with 2K5 and 2K8 and talk about how great reactions were, how realistic gameplay was, because he had a sprained ankle, or he was running in the rain, or he got bumped by a defender. We don't have those conversations with Madden anymore. And in a way, that's probably, when you talk about the community and how small it is, that's probably a big part of it. The gameplay really hasn't inspired a lot of people. Look at games like Fortnite. Those games inspire people to go out and be creators. I don't think Madden right now inspires people to be creators. I think Madden inspires people to be competitive gamers. And competitive gaming is not an attractive thing to look at in Madden because, like we talked about, it relies on exploits. It relies on tactics that aren't sound in actual football. There's no one watching those tournaments and saying, I'm going to employ this in my actual football team. But that's what I used to do on Friday nights.
Do you think we can get back to that gray area, though, where we could come to the table together, guys that are, like you said, pro Madden, and that guys that they say are Madden haters, but you're just critical of the game because of your frustration? Do you think we can get back to the table together to make a better football game for EA?
I hope. I mean, I really do. I know that people have tried because I know that I've tried. And ultimately, I think it comes down to some people are just too ingrained with EA. There's NDAs involved now. There's a number of things involved that make it more difficult than it used to be. But that doesn't mean that people shouldn't keep trying. I mean, like I said, for a very long time, the Sim Standard was me and a group of guys with that same concept. The problem ultimately became a lot of those guys went other places. We've all been to EA now. Just some of us stayed with EA. And like you said, that negativity, whether it's valid or not, actually creates the opinions of people at EA. When I went to E3 3 years ago, I remember Clint Oldenburg asked me how much, Damon Grohl was paying me. Literally told me that I was on the payroll with Superstar Games, and I said, I'm not. Where does that come from? There's people right now that claim that I didn't get hired by EA. I've never applied for EA. I never would apply for EA. And I've said the same thing consistently every single time it's brought up. I cannot take a pay cut. I cannot move to Florida. And I am not a game designer. And I'm not going to start being one at my age. I've done too much.
Does Ryan Moody buy Madden 19?
I haven't had to buy Madden for a long time because I get it for free. If I do, and maybe that helps ease some of the hate. They really hated me. They wouldn't give me their product. Hopefully I can get a copy on PC. I think PC is where I'm going to go to this year. I think PC eliminates a lot of the I don't know exactly what word to use. I don't want to use gray area, but I think PC eliminates a lot of the questions. If we look at the PC, if we look at PC gaming versus console, There's no more excuses. You can't tell me that, oh, it's a memory issue. Oh, it's a clocking issue. Whatever the case may be. Listen, my moderate gaming PC destroys my PS4. It isn't even in the same league. So, when we look at those things, there's a consistency. There's a benchmark. That's what I was looking for. There's a benchmark on the PC of this is every game in the same environment. And that's what I'm really, really intrigued by. How will Madden run on my PC? Because I know a lot of the limitations that Madden is given is blamed on the console. Right. And going to PC eliminates that. And we finally do, even in a way, though, we would have a fair playing field this year. They're all going to be on console. But I do really feel like it's, the PC gaming for me, it's just easier to deal with. It's so much easier to deal with. The controller stays the same. I'm not jumping back and forth. To record on a PC is easier than it is to record on a PS4 and Xbox One. So, I suppose if I'm not going to get a copy of Madden on PC, maybe I'll have to invest in that, but I don't know. I also don't know how the community is going to react to that. That might be an exclusive. This might be the first time somebody's actually officially heard me say, I'm 99.9% sure my Madden 19 footage will be done on PC.
Wow. And you heard it here on Xpert's Corner. All right, Ryan, I can't thank you enough taking time out your busy day. I know you got a crazy schedule, and you gave up some time to jump on Xpert's Corner. Always good to hear your opinion. Whether people agree with you or not, you definitely are consistent. And I certainly hope, as a community, being as Xpert is an EA guy, I love EA. I'm really looking forward to 19. I can't wait to see it. But I really hope, as a community, we can come back together. Guys like Ryan, guys like Sim F Ball and Shotmaster, we can get together and just have the best game possible, which is truly, I think, Ryan, I think that's really what you want. Just the best possible game for the community. But, man, I appreciate you jumping on the show.
Anytime, man. I've never turned down an interview with anybody.
No doubt. All right, guys. That's your boy Ryan Moody, Shutdown Safety on Twitter. Make sure y'all check him out on Twitter and on YouTube. This has been Xpert's Corner. It's your boy Xpert, and I'm out.